If you're in search of one of the world's great wine values, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Paulinski Master of Wine. In today's video, I'm going to discuss a very special wine region, the types of wines that it's produced and what you can expect to find in your wine glass. And the video will then conclude with a tasting of a benchmark example. If you can't find the exact wine that I'm showing in this video, no worries, I'll provide plenty of other options that you can look for when you're out wine shopping. This seemed to be the right shirt to wear for today's video since the focus here is on Portugal. Specifically, I'll be focusing on one region, one that I feel is absolutely fantastic on a consistent basis, and that's the region of Dow. Portugal is home to some of the world's best wine values. It has a long winemaking history, highly diverse growing conditions, and more than 250 registered indigenous grape varieties. Across Portugal, international grape varieties only account for about 3% of the wine that's produced. Every region in Portugal produces wine. Dow stands out from all others. For me, this is the source that I'm drinking more of than any other in recent years. The wines have a unique character, a true sense of place, great value, and versatility at the table. This is definitely a place to search out. Simply put, if you're not paying attention to this region, you're missing out. Dow is a landlocked region with about 50,000 acres under vines, located just south of the famed Douro Valley. By comparison, the climate is cooler and wetter. Oftentimes, it's compared to Burgundy. In terms of climate, there are some similarities, but the elevation is greater and the soil structure is quite different, being mostly granite and schist with low fertility. For me, the wine region is more reminiscent of what you'll find in the southern Rhone and the better parts of Languedoc. About 80% of the region's wine is dedicated to red. The region encountered a decades-long period of decline. In the 1940s, the Portuguese dictator Salazar decreed that only cooperative wineries could produce wine in the Dow as part of a self-sufficiency drive. This led to a high focus on volume with marginal quality and stagnation in terms of innovation. The situation didn't change until the late 1980s when the decree ended. Since that time, the region has been completely redefined and modernized, yet the wines remain largely undervalued. If you were to visit the Dow today, you might be surprised as vineyards do not dominate the landscape. Less than 10% of the landmass is dedicated to vines. Most of the vineyards are surrounded by forests. There's also a large diurnal temperature swing from day to night. This is the difference maker in terms of the wines having freshness and good acidity. There's also a good smattering of old vines. Most Portuguese wines are blends, and typically Touriga Nacional will play a predominant role. But while I'm a big fan of the modern day version of Dow, if I go back 30 years ago or so, completely different story. Since that time, vineyard techniques and cellar techniques have greatly improved, and it's really lifted the overall quality of the region. Now, these are not wines built on heft and power and density. They're much more supple, refined, and elegant in style. Well, you probably won't be taking this wine to some special dinner party or gifting it for a birthday, for instance, but for everyday table wines, they're tremendous. They're very versatile at the table. They're a lot of fun in blind tasting events as well. If you're a fan of the wines from the Southern Rhone, like a solid Côte de Rhone, or some of the wines from the Languedoc, like Corbière or Minervois, you'll also be a fan of Dow. As for the wine to be tasted, it's from Boas Quintas, a property established in 1991. The specific wine is called Ultimo. It represents a prime example of modern day Dow. The wine is made from deeply colored Touriga Nacional, and Tinta Barroca is there for added body. The two are commonly grown in the Douro, but in the Dow, the style is softer, more refined, with better acidity. Portuguese wines will be designated into one of three quality levels indicated by a stamp on the bottle itself. Boas Quinta Ultimo is the top tier, the most strictly defined. There's a regulatory agency that ensures the authenticity and character of the wine. Packaging sometimes accounts for the single largest expense with a bottle of wine. This one trims costs with lightweight glass, a basic cheapy plastic capsule, and an inexpensive agglomerate cork, a cork made from tiny bits held together with food-grade bonding agent. This type of cork closure has become the go-to standard for many low to mid priced wines that are not meant for long term aging. Occasionally, I'll mention that I rarely drink the same wine twice over the course of a year. Well, this is one of the exceptions. I've had this wine several times over the last few months, just not getting tired of it whatsoever. And for me, that's a perfect candidate for an everyday table wine. Let's get into the tasting. The appearance is youthful. There's a medium deep red appearance that lightens somewhat as you get to the edge of the glass. Aromatics are just beautiful. It smells like fresh red raspberry. There's a savoriness, a little bit of a spicy note as well. There's no alcoholic heat whatsoever. The oak influence in this wine is essentially nil, but there's a vitality, there's a freshness, a brightness, a purity to it that I find just very appealing. On the palate, all of those aromatic characteristics just carry through. Bright primary fruit. The wine is extremely soft. There's good length to it. It's a complete wine. You can tell the raw material in this wine was very good. That fruit was in fantastic condition when it came into the winery. And in terms of the wine making, this is really more a style of what the winemaker's not doing versus what they are doing. This is very much a hands-off sort of winemaking approach, letting the fruit and letting the vineyard and place express its character. Absolutely love this wine. It's not something that you want to keep very long. This being a 2020 vintage, the wine is fully ready to drink now. If you kept it another year or two, I think it'll hold together just fine, but it's not going to benefit from any sort of long-term aging. There's one other additional point that's worth discussing, and for some reason, this seems to be more connected to conversation with white wine than red, and that's just flat out wrong. It's the point of acidity. And this wine has a good amount of acidity. It lifts the wine, makes it fresh and bright on the palate. It really forms much of the backbone of it as well. And without that acidity, the wine would just fall flat and dull. Because of the diurnal temperature swing in the Dow, you do get a good amount of acidity, and it absolutely makes the wines cleaner, brighter, fresher on the palate, especially those that are built on primary fruit. It just makes the wine much more complete and whole. Absolutely love this wine from start to finish. If you can't find this exact bottle, search out some of the other options that I'm providing because they'll be quite similar in style. Portugal offers a treasure trove of wine discoveries, fantastic values, and in my opinion, some of the most interesting wines anywhere in the world today. If you have a comment on Portuguese wine, please post it down below. I try to follow up on each and every one. If you've not yet subscribed, stop hesitating. Do it right now. Hit that bell. You'll be kept up to speed on all things happening with this channel. Hit that like button as well. All these things would be very much appreciated. If you want to learn a bit more about Portuguese wine, click that link next to me. And as always, thanks for sticking around. Hope to see you again before too long. Cheers. Oh, that's good.